Okay, thanks for coming back to the channel. This wasn't something I was really planning on doing, but last week I had a discussion with somebody that I care about very deeply, and that made me put together a video about the Georgia phone call between Trump's attorneys and the Secretary of State of Georgia. And when I started looking deeper into it, I felt like I actually have to do this. And keep in mind that I'm the man who, when I made my first video to start to explain how government should work and how good government does work, that video was made no confidence. That's what I called it, was vote no confidence. Because I don't have confidence in the elected officials that are here in the United States. And so I've already written to them and told them that I don't have any confidence in them and that they don't have any right to represent me. Now, after I made the Georgia video, the individual that I cared about, and I still care about, was asking me, well, what's the other side's story? Okay, like, why are they not releasing this information? And I still don't know why they're not releasing the information, but I have here some of the responses that the Secretary of State gave to the legislatures of Georgia. I'm going to make a series of a couple of videos and then put everything together at the end, because I like to study a lot of history and I've seen this game played before. And if you love America, if you believe in democracy, then you should watch this. And not only watch it, but you should share it with everybody that you know. Because if me and you, don't change things really quickly, this is going to get out of control. And I'm gonna explain more about that in later videos. Let's get into this questioning, and I just wish for you to know before I start, the gentleman who's answering the questions is not under oath like the people were when they were answering questions before the legislature that I made about Pennsylvania. Okay? He's not under oath, he's not testifying, he's just answering questions. This is the general counsel for the Secretary of State of Georgia. So let's see what's going on here.
I had a couple of questions that I want to ask him. First, I want to thank the Secretary Raffensperger for his earlier comments. After the last meeting, I had several questions that really did prompt me, but I did want to thank him for some of the other comments he made. I think I'm the only member on this committee, might be the only member left in the legislature that voted against expanding the absentee voting.
Okay, so right there, I just wish to point this out. Mr. Powell is saying that the Secretary of State made comments. He hasn't testified. He's not giving testimony. He's just making comments, and he has some questions. I think his questions are pretty good. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Without cause a few years ago, because having been involved in elected politics all of my life, I've always known that the number one place to find any fraud would be in the absentee system. But there's a few questions other than that one that I just asked about the criteria for doing this statewide match, which would be to our benefit legislatively. I also wanted to ask a few questions that came up in the last meeting that gave me some pause for concern. One was about private money being given to various local boards of election. That's one question. The second question, how much of that money and how prevalent is that private funds are given to local boards of election? I did note that one thing, a couple of things that concerned me was, we hear people talk about drop boxes and that's the security around these drop boxes. I'm told that they were paid for by somebody privately. One of the things at that last meeting that gave me some rise concern was that they had voting machines on buses. And I've always been under the opinion that voting machines had to be stationary in a specific location. And now we're seeing, snapshots of them set up in parking lots, and I don't know if that's true or not, because we've heard so much fiction or not knowing what's true and what's not true. But I do want to ask that as another question. I'm of the opinion, and it's only my opinion, but that with various boards of elections, when the change in the exact match came down back in March, they gave more latitude. Certainly not what a lot of people thought it was, but it did give latitude that those local boards of elections, if they predominantly lean one direction or another, then they might not be quite as concerned about doing the exact match. But hopefully we'll change a lot of that with the legislation for the real ID type deal. So that being said, those are my questions for right now.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to respond.
Yes, sir. Please do.
So, first of all, Chairman Powell, I think you've kind of been proven correct on your no vote for no excuse absentee. So I thank you for that. I know probably a lot of county election officials would as well. Your question about private money. Yes, we provided some grants to counties for drop boxes and for personal protective equipment. The grants that we provided came from the CARES funds provided by the federal government, and then some third-party groups also provided grants for election officials this year. Our office does not oppose not allowing those third-party groups to provide those grants to counties in the future. I would say that it will probably require some counties to then, increase their funding of their elections office. So it's really about appearances and making sure that, there's really no bias or anything else from either side.
Okay, so a couple of things that I would like to point out here. This gentleman, Ryan Germany, I'm going to start off with, he's talking about appearances. He's basically recognizing, yeah, this election looks bad. And one of the reasons it looks bad is because of how much money they got from private organizations. And I don't know if you know this, because I didn't know this until a couple of days ago, but Mark Zuckerberg financed nonprofit organizations for voting and actually put more money into the boards of elections and election offices all across this country, but mainly in big cities. More money he put than the entire federal government gave to the states for voting. Now, to me, that is dangerous and it's crazy, because here you have a private individual who's putting more money, who's financing these operations more than the government itself. And another thing I wish to point out is he started off saying, well, Senator, you know what? You were probably right about that vote, not taking absentee ballots and the no excuse on absentee ballots. You were probably right about that. We're going to recognize that. Even the Secretary of State's attorney recognizes that fact. And he said that a lot of election boards would have probably appreciated it as well, which means that there were probably a whole lot of issues with the mail-in balloting and verifying everything. Just my take on it.
In these counties. In terms of, you asked about mobile or the voting buses that Fulton County has. Yes, Fulton County does have those buses. My understanding, those were new this year. They never had them before. I don't think they even had them for the primary, so they were new for November. The idea was, from my understanding, to be able to supplement voting at certain locations. And we have seen places where, based on natural disasters or whatever else, a polling place has essentially gone down. And having a mobile unit, if that happens on election day, I think could be a really good thing.
Okay, now let me just point out a couple of things here. I don't know of any natural disasters that happened around November 3rd this past year. Yet he's using natural disasters as an excuse for having those mobile polling places around. Okay, admitting that there are polling places on a bus that can be moved around. Now, the legislature never passed this because that's why the legislature is asking him if this is true, if this is actually going on. And listen to what he says. He says, to my understanding, he says that a couple of times. And this is what I'm talking about with he's not actually giving verified testimony. He doesn't actually know the truth about what's going on. He is just presenting to the legislatures what has been presented to him. And what's been presented to him has come from the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State's office, who won't be transparent and allow Trump's attorneys to go in there and verify the discrepancies that they have with all of the numbers. Now, there's something kind of strange about that. And this gentleman, see, he doesn't, to me, just by his body language and the way he's talking and looking, he doesn't seem as comfortable as the people who were testifying up in Pennsylvania before the legislatures. They seemed real comfortable talking about what they saw and what they knew. But anyways, let's keep going with this.
The fact that the polling place is contained within this bus, I think does raise some concerns. You can't park the bus anywhere. It's still got to be in an approved polling place or approved early voting location. If it was not, then that would not be a legal location. And what we're investigating, we got complaints about the Fulton County mobile buses. What we're looking at is everywhere that they are having it an approved voting location. For early voting, it's got to be either a government building or an election day polling place. And based on where they are, it looks like they are complying with that.
It looks like it. He doesn't know.
But Fulton County does have those, so that is correct. And you asked about the signature audit too, and yes, we're looking forward to conducting that. You mentioned, is there...
Okay, so this is on the December 23rd, and he's talking about, you asked about the signature audit, and we're looking forward to doing that. They still had not audited the signatures from the mail-in ballots that they got that they had already counted. In my mind, this is a problem because voting's supposed to be anonymous. My understanding is that all of this stuff is supposed to be separated, that when they get the mail-in ballots, they're supposed to open them and verify that the signatures match so that they can separate the ballot from the signature and the identity of the individual. But I'm not an expert.
Their kind of difference in counties and how they apply it, and that was the reason why it was challenged. Based on my conversations with county election officials, they don't like the signature match because there is a level of subjectivity into whether or not it, the law says whether or not it appears to be valid, and there's certainly a level of subjectivity in that. So I think that's another reason why we should move away from that as a way to verify absentee ballots to something that's objective.
And my questions go toward any extent to which Georgia law was changed by what has been referred to as a settlement agreement or consent decree, and also how that was carried out. Was there an order of the court in the federal case? Was it simply a settlement agreement of the parties? How did the Secretary of State communicate this to the various counties as to any potential changes in the signature verification process? And I know that the Secretary of State occasionally does something that I call advisory memos to the counties on how they have to proceed. And if that's what it was, you can tell me the proper name of that. Was that communication between the Secretary of State and the boards of elections on the signature verification something that they had to follow? It was mandatory, or was it simply a best practices suggestion? Does my question make sense, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was a settlement agreement entered into by the parties. It was not a consent order or consent decree entered by the court. In return, the plaintiffs agreed to dismiss all their claims, release all of their, release us from any kind of future claims about those issues, and we did not pay any attorney's fees. And then the settlement agreement. About your question about the advisory, we call them official election bulletins, and they come from our office and go to each county board. And we sent one out saying, hey, here is our recommended process as a best practice to do this. And basically, that's how it works. As you pointed out, county election boards are the superintendents of elections in each county. We try to provide them support and guidance, and that's what our official election bulletins are.
Is it mandatory that they follow these? Is it a statute?
It's mandatory they follow state law and SED regulations. And we believe that what we send them is the best way to do that. If they disagree, then what really drives the issue is are they following state law, state election board regulations? Those are what's mandatory. Our official election bulletins are meant to be helpful to help them do that.
So as the Secretary sends out a communication in this fashion to the various boards of election, has he or can he, by doing that, mandate that they follow that, or is it simply the Board of Elections' discretion as to what the statute is and how they must follow it? Does my question make sense?
Yes, it's their discretion and their obligation to follow law. Ours is meant to be helpful. If they disagree with it, then it's not. You don't get put in front of the state election board for not following an official election bulletin, but you do for not following state law or state election board regulations.
My last question.
Okay, so let me explain this because that was a little difficult to follow. This senator, or elected official, I don't know if he's a senator, but he's asking a pretty straightforward question. He's asking, okay, so when you had this consent judgment, order, agreement, this settlement that y'all came to, when you did that, y'all sent out a memo to all of the election boards, all of the election officials. Now, do they have to follow the state laws, the state statutes, and do you oversee that? And basically, the attorney, after trying to dodge this question a couple of times, he finally gets down and he actually says, yeah, we just kind of send them our recommendations on how to best follow the state statutes. But nobody actually sits over their shoulders and makes sure that they do. And when we send them the information on how to best follow the state statutes and the state laws in which the legislatures have put into place, they don't have to. They can do it at their own discretion, and if they get caught, they can get pulled in front of a board. But nobody's sitting over them, watching them, making sure that they're following all of these things. Not even the Secretary of State, who it's his job to run this process. That's why he's the one being pulled into the hearing. And I don't know why his attorney's speaking for him, but whatever. Plenty of innocent people have attorneys speaking for them, like OJ.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Germany, you may or may not be able to comment on this, depending on any litigation. There has been discussion about Coffee County, Georgia, and the Board of Elections there, and issues as to whether or not they certified election results, and issues as to whether or not the voting machines properly recorded votes in races. And are you able to comment on what that is all about and the status of that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So yes, after about the same time as y'all's last meeting on these, our investigators went down to Coffee County to basically see what the issue was. There were some things that said at the last meeting that were not true. I mean, one of them being they couldn't come to our office, we wouldn't call them back. We actually had a tech on the way to their office that Friday afternoon that they had called us, but they had already left for the day. So I think there was some stuff about that was not exactly accurate. And then the next week we sent our investigators down there to see, okay, what exactly happened. What we saw is that she had that video of, oh, here's how you could go change votes. The director confirmed to our investigators that she in fact did not do that they followed the process, that she was not aware of anybody who did that or had any evidence that anyone in Georgia had not followed the adjudication process, which requires a Democrat, Republican, and an election official to conduct those adjudications. And then in terms of her results, my understanding is they did certify their recount results. They had an issue where it looked like they had, I think, maybe scanned one batch of ballots twice in the recount, and so they had 50 extra ballots from the recount than they had from their initial result. And I believe they were able to find and rectify that prior to submitting us their certified recount results.
Okay, so again, let me kind of go back and break down what he was just talking about. He starts off with saying that, yeah, the report that we gave you before, that wasn't exactly accurate. So the information that they had gotten before wasn't exactly accurate. He admitted to this. And then when he's talking about sending down an investigator, they're sending down one of their investigators from their office. And all this investigator's doing is going down to the election official that's in question for what they're talking about. And even though they can verify that, yes, you can just punch in votes into this machine. I mean, he clearly said, yeah, you can just punch in votes to this machine. But she commented, she didn't testify, she didn't write out an affidavit, she didn't do anything official that she could be held for the penalty of perjury for. But she commented to the investigator that didn't happen, and no, we would never do anything outside of the law. And yeah, that was it. yes, we could break the law really easily, but I'm going to comment to you that we didn't, just like I'm going to send my attorney in to comment to you guys and give you his best understanding rather than coming before the Senate committee hearing and testifying to what the actual numbers are, bringing in data, bringing in evidence. I'm not going to do that. But you guys, y'all can just trust me. I mean, I'm the secret keeper of the state. That's why they call me the secretary. Secret Airy. I mean, it would almost be funny if it wasn't so sad.
And once again, understanding that ongoing litigation, you are obviously the right person to know whether or not you can or cannot respond to this. But as I understand it, there has been a request to examine the voting machines in Coffee County with proponents of a lawsuit that make the accusation that they are somehow not properly recording the votes. Is there a availability for an outside group challenging this the efficiency of the proper working of the voting machine to actually have one set aside where their quote unquote expert could actually examine the machine and if so run tests, obviously with someone from Coffee County or the Secretary of State's office being there to supervise, I guess I would say.
Yes, that's something that we do try to put together in litigation. Normally, third parties are not allowed to access the voting equipment, the voting servers, or anything like that. And that's in state election rules regulation. We have had a lot of litigation over the machines since they've been adopted. We're now seeing, of course, we're now seeing different detractors, but they're making the same claims about the machines that have been made. Our position has always been, let's set up a fair inspection where both parties are present, where it's videotaped, where the rules of engagement are agreed upon, and then we'll go forward kind of with the court's approval. What we disagree with is any kind of sort of unilateral access from people who really seem to have a certain result they want to reach. So we're happy to. That's been our consistent position before.
Full of activity. That's a help.
But I mean, look, if you wish to have a third party and independent investigator look at these machines, and it seems like the other side wishes to have a third party independent investigator look at these machines, what's the problem? Y'all can't come to some sort of an agreement because you don't wish for somebody who has an interest to get into this? I mean, I'm sure that we can find some type of third-party, impartial individual to look at the machines. I'm not a computer expert, but I'd definitely be third-party, impartial. I didn't even vote. You're telling me you can't find some people that didn't vote that are computer experts who don't care? Crazy.
The 18-year-old brain. Mine.
My brain's not 18 years old anymore.
And getting dimmer all the time. I had a million excuses for my fogginess. I was just tired, distracted, having a moment, whatever that means. But the truth is, I was scared as hell about what was happening to me. What else would I lose mentally? Where would my mind end up? Then something happened that changed everything.
I woke up! I became aware of what was going on around me. That's what changed. And now I feel way better and my brain does not feel as foggy. Anyways, let's see what's going on in Arizona, because I've shown you some stuff from Georgia, I've shown you some stuff from in Pennsylvania. Now let's see what's going on in Arizona, because like I said, this is happening. A lot of these things are occurring in all of these states that have been contested.
Hello, everyone. I'm Walt Blackman, State Representative, and I represent Northeastern Arizona, which is Legislative District 6. A few weeks ago, the Maricopa Board of County Supervisors disregarded a subpoena that was issued from the Arizona State Senate. Our Maricopa County Board of Supervisors has literally broken the law by not following a subpoena action. Neither I or those members of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors are above the law. So it's important that they understand and they get this message. Tomorrow, they will follow the law, and if they do not follow the law, they can have those consequences, and those consequences are dire. The president of the Senate can issue a warrant for the items in question named in the subpoena. I encourage the Board of Supervisors in Maricopa to follow the law and the letter of the law and make sure that they follow the subpoena, because the law does not just apply to working men and women around the country and Arizona. It applies to elected officials, to include the Board of Supervisors of Maricopa County. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless Arizona and the United States.
All right. Well, you just heard him say it. The Board of Supervisors refused to answer a subpoena written by the legislatures. The legislatures actually took it to court, and the court said that it didn't have any jurisdiction. This is what's actually amazing to me, is that the legislatures of these various states don't understand that they're an actual court. They don't understand their actual power. So they went back to school, they realized that they are a court, and that if they issue their subpoena, then they can also issue their own contempt order and have these people arrested. Now, I just saw the other day that the Board of Supervisors is now going to hand over what they have been subpoenaing from the Board of Supervisors. And my guess is that they're probably going to do it because nobody wants to go sit in jail over this. Because when you actually put people in jail, or you give people actual consequences to their crimes, they might quit doing them. I mean, that's just kind of one of my fundamental views on this channel. Anyways, even if they hand it over, let's just say the forensic audit comes back perfectly fine. Mark Zuckerberg has spent more money on this election than the United States government. Single-handedly. He's a pretty good computer expert. I bet he knows a lot of really good computer experts. Just the fact that they never handed this stuff over right from the beginning seems really fishy to me. Anyways, that's all I got for right now, because I'm trying to keep these a little smaller than the Pennsylvania one. And I'm just conspiracy. I just wish to conspire with other good people of this planet to leave a better world for future generations than the world we all grew up in. If you're watching this and you wish to join in that conspiracy, like, share, subscribe, and comment. Get this out there, because if people don't start waking up, if the American public doesn't start waking up and see what just happened to their country, they're not going to have a country anymore. They're not. It's just that simple. One world love, keep it real, and peace.